Here with Carmen Vitali from Fox Sports. She is a good friend of the Silver and Black Show. We've had you on in the past, and you went from covering the NFC North, because that was the last time we talked to you, to now being a national reporter for them. And we love your analysis, so I really wanted to have you on to get your idea of what's going on with the Raiders. Look, we all know it was a tough season. We all know it's a franchise that's looking to turn itself around, and there's been a lot of changes. What do you think of all the changes we've seen so far, and we haven't even hit free agency or the draft, will have the most impact on the Raiders?
I mean, it has to be the coaching and the GM hires, because they have so much, obviously, impact and influence over the organization. Pete Carroll's a huge culture-building guy. I think I loved that hire. I know that he's 73, but when people say 73 years young, they mean it. He is not, he's a very young, spry 73-year-old, even if John Spytek decides to give him a little nudge at the press conference. But actually, I was with John Spytek in Tampa. Worked for the Buccaneers for 6 years, worked very closely and got to know those guys very, very well. I absolutely love Spy, and I'm so happy for him. He's been a part of the GM hiring cycle, taking interviews for the last couple of years. He now gets this shot with the Raiders, and I know that people are going to point to the Tom Brady connection. But then they honestly didn't. Spy was a freshman when Tom was a senior, so like he was like the low man on the totem pole, low man on campus when Tom was there. When they reconnected in Tampa for that Super Bowl run, that first year with Tom, they really kind of learned what each other were like, you know, in the professional sense. But what I really appreciated about Spy, which was preceded Brady and will continue with the Raiders, is how good of an evaluator he is. He is an incredible evaluator of talent at both the collegiate levels and when you get up to kind of the NFL pro scouting. So he's got background in both. And the way that the Buccaneers have drafted while he was there, he was Jason Light's right-hand man. And he was responsible for so much of the evaluation part of everything. And if you look at the Bucs drafts, they're getting starters, cornerstone players in the third, in the fourth, in the fifth round sometimes.
Bucky Irvin in the seventh, right?
Yes. And so it's an incredible asset when you have such limited picks. I know the Raiders only have a couple in the top 100. But you can count on a guy like Spy to get you someone that is going to be a contributor to your team on that day, in those day three picks.
We know that in New England, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, they were known for having these meetings where they would sit down weekly and kind of talk about game plans. We know that as a quarterback, he had an input. It was a unique situation. Most quarterbacks don't have that situation. And then when he went to Tampa, I was told that he would have similar kind of meetings with Spy to talk about. I love that we're calling him Spy now.
Yeah, sorry,
that's John Spytek. That Spytek was kind of a part of some of those meetings and talking about personnel. And it seems like, is that where the relationship with Brady grew? Because it is kind of, you know, yes, he was there with him. He wasn't there that long. And for him to take kind of an assistant GM, a personnel guy, and think highly enough for him. What was it about what they actually did there together? What do you know about some of those meetings?
Yeah, it was, I mean, Tom Brady leaves no stone unturned. And that was true of him as a player. It'll be true of him at whatever role he's in. And one of the things that he wants to know is when he's watching tape, he wants to know what the opponent, what makes them tick. And so to bring in the personnel side of things, who have evaluated, because again, Spytek had so much pro personnel and pro scout experience, he knows all the guys across the league. So he can sit there with Tom while they're watching tape, being like, yeah, so that guy, he was drafted here, these are his tendencies, this is what we were concerned about. This is like, he can give him all this background that then gave Tom a leg up when it came to game planning, because he also had those meetings with Bruce Arians that he did with Bill Belichick about the game plan. Tom was very, very involved. I always kind of joke that he played live action Madden with the Bucs, because there were times where Tom would change not the play call like an audible. He would just change one receiver's route based on what he was seeing from the opposing team. And to know how that affects the rest of the play, to know how that would affect the defense, is just the football acumen there is just insane, which is nothing new with Tom Brady. But it's because of things like meeting with personnel guys to really understand what they're up against week after week.
And that's what builds a winning culture. And now you have Tom Brady and you have Pete Carroll, who built a winning culture in Seattle. But the addition of Chip Kelly is something I'm intrigued by. You know, a lot of people are excited about this. You have to What type of offense do you think he will run with the Raiders? Do you think he'll be the kind of person that runs a Chip Kelly offense? Or, they get named that. There's a Shanahan offense, and there was a Luke Getsy offense last year. Is he going to run, which is typically running the football quite a bit? Do we look at Ohio State?
Right.
What do we expect from Chip Kelly?
So it's really interesting when you look at kind of trends across the league and what kind of makes it and how cyclical it ends up being. Everything comes from the lower levels up. So things start literally in the youth leagues, high school. They make their way up to college, and then it makes its way up to the NFL. So you have a guy like Chip Kelly, who's now had years of experience in college, understanding what the next phase is coming for in the NFL. And I do think that there's more running the football. I do think there's, the importance of having a mobile quarterback, which obviously the Raiders are going to have to make a decision on who they bring in or who they draft or whoever is going to be under center. But I think what you're doing is looking now for a mobile quarterback that can factor into the run game, because that's where you see the trends going offensively. And Chip Kelly is going to have a leg up on that, given that he was in college where a lot of this kind of stuff stems from as it makes its way up into the NFL.
With the Raiders having so much money and cap space, that is the one. They maybe not a lot of picks, but a lot of cap space.
A lot of cap space.
Do you expect them to be super aggressive in free agency, and where do you think it'll start?
Yeah, I would have to think. I think that quarterback is the most important position on the field, right? But you definitely need to fortify that offensive line a little bit more. And there are so many different needs, but I do think that you kind of start with the most important positions on the field, see where you can get creative and do all of that kind of stuff, which is, again, something that Spytek is going to be really, I think him and then Pete Carroll, who had personnel control in Seattle. I'm so curious and I'm so excited to see that relationship blossom in how they determine who they're going to bring in and all of that. They have to be aggressive because you have to have a guy under center that's going to bring some stability. And again, with that money talks. Yeah. So you have that money, you should probably start with a quarterback.
It begins and ends, it begins and ends with the quarterback. And the success, especially in the AFC West, that has three of the best, Bo Nix is making his way up. Had an Offensive Rookie of the Year type of a season. He's up for that award tonight at Honors.
Yes.
You have to have a quarterback. So I agree with you 100%. Carmen, so fun to talk a little football with you. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Amber.
We'll have you back on the show next year, that's for sure.
Sounds great.